In the 1970s, the Soviet Union drilled a hole so deep that it punched through a third of the Earth's crust. It took them nearly 20 years. At 12,262 meters deep, it is still the deepest man-made point on the planet. Deeper than the Mariana Trench is deep. Deeper than Mount Everest is tall. And then, in the 1990s, they just stopped. The drilling rig was abandoned. The scientific base was shut down. The town that housed the scientists was left to rust. Why did they stop? The official reason was lack of money. But the legend is much darker. They say that at the bottom of that hole, the drillers heard the screams of the damned. They say that hell is real, and they found the door. This is the story of the Kola Superdeep Borehole, the deepest hole ever drilled, the place they call the well to hell. To understand this project, you first have to understand why anyone would want to dig a hole 12 kilometers deep in the middle of the Arctic. The official Soviet goal was pure science. In the 1960s, geologists had many theories about what lay beneath the Earth's crust. They knew about the Mohorovičić discontinuity, the boundary between the crust and the mantle, the Moho for short. No one had ever reached it. In the United States, scientists had tried. Project Mohole failed in 1966 because of mismanagement and politics. The Soviets decided to compete. If the Americans couldn't reach the mantle, the Soviets would. They chose a location on the Kola Peninsula near the Norwegian border. Not for oil, not for gold, for knowledge. The drilling started on May 24, 1970. Vladimir Lenin's 100th birthday was that year. The project was meant to be a monument to Soviet science. The first 7,000 meters came easily enough. But from 7,000 to 12,000, the challenges became enormous. At depth, the temperature rose much faster than expected. At 7,000 meters, it was 120 degrees Celsius. At 10,000 meters, it was over 180 degrees. At 12 kilometers, the temperature reached 220 degrees Celsius. The drills melted. The drill bits wore out in hours. The rock became plastic, like putty. The Soviet engineers had to invent new technologies just to keep going. They cooled the drill head with tons of pressurized fluid. They created new alloys that could withstand extreme heat. They developed vertical drilling techniques that allowed them to stay on target for kilometers. And they kept digging. For 24 years, the drilling continued. At the peak of the project, the Kola Superdeep Borehole employed over 1,000 people. The scientists and engineers lived in a small town called Zapolyarny, a city built just for them. It had apartment blocks, schools, a hospital, a cinema, a bus that took workers to the drilling site every day. By night, the scientists talked about what they were finding, and what they found was extraordinary. At 9,000 meters, they discovered water. Water trapped in the rocks for more than 2 billion years. At 10,000 meters, they found microscopic fossils of single-celled organisms, fossils that were over 2 billion years old. They found hellish conditions that should have made life impossible. But life existed. At 11,000 meters, they found methane gas under unimaginable pressure, gas that had been locked in the earth for geological ages. And at 12,000 meters, they found something unexpected, something that, to this day, remains unexplained. The rock became spongy, porous, full of cracks. But the cracks were not empty. They were filled with water. Water that was flowing. Water that was moving. At that depth, under that much pressure, water should not flow. It should be locked solid. But it was flowing. The scientists measured the temperature, 220 degrees Celsius. Water should have boiled into steam, but it did not. The pressure kept it liquid. And in that liquid, they found helium, hydrogen, and nitrogen, gases that suggested something strange was happening deep inside the planet. They kept drilling. By the early 1990s, the Kola Superdeep Borehole had reached 12,262 meters, 7.6 miles down, deep enough to touch the roof of the mantle. But then, the Soviet Union collapsed. Funding vanished. The scientists were not paid for months. The drilling stopped. In 1995, the project was officially shut down. The rig was abandoned. The lab was locked. The town was left to die. Today, the Kola Superdeep Borehole is a ghost. The main building is boarded up. Windows are broken. Rust covers everything. The entrance to the borehole itself is sealed with a heavy metal cap, welded shut. But legend says that before the cap was sealed, the scientists heard something. They lowered a microphone down the borehole. A heat-resistant, pressure-resistant microphone designed to record the sounds of the deep earth. And they recorded something that should not exist. Screams. Human screams. Coming from 12 kilometers below the surface. The story spread through Russian newspapers in the 1990s. A Finnish newspaper published a story titled "The Well to Hell." The article claimed that the scientists had lowered a microphone and heard the agonized cries of sinners burning in the underworld. It claimed that a geologist named Dimitar Azarov had recorded the sounds and described them as the screams of millions of tortured souls. It claimed that the scientists had been so horrified that they had stopped drilling immediately, that they had sealed the borehole and fled. The story went viral. This was the early days of the internet. Chain emails spread the legend around the world. It became a parable, a warning about mankind's hubris, a confirmation that hell was real. But here is the truth. The Kola Superdeep Borehole never recorded any screams. The temperature at the bottom was 220 degrees Celsius. No microphone could survive that. The legend was created by a Finnish journalist, a journalist who needed a story, who wrote a tale of science fiction, and who later admitted that it was a joke. But the legend stuck. Because the truth is that the Kola Superdeep Borehole revealed something much stranger than hell. It revealed that our planet is still alive, that water flows in places we thought were dead, that microbes survive in conditions that should kill anything, that the Earth's crust is leaking gases from deep inside the mantle, and that there are mysteries we may never solve. Why does the rock become porous at 12 kilometers? Why does water flow in the deep crust? What is the source of the helium and hydrogen? The borehole is sealed now. The cap is welded shut. The equipment is rusting. The scientists have scattered across the world, and the deepest hole on Earth is waiting for someone to return, waiting for technology advanced enough to go deeper. Some scientists want to return. They want to drill to 15 kilometers, 20 kilometers. They say the secrets of the deep Earth are still there, waiting to be discovered. But the Kola Superdeep Borehole is also a monument to the collapse of an empire. It is a concrete tombstone for Soviet science. The town, the rig, the lab, all abandoned, all decaying, all waiting for the Arctic forest to reclaim them. The legend of the well to hell will not die. Stories about the screams of the damned will circulate forever on the internet, because people want to believe. They want to know that there is something below, that death is not the end, that hell is real. But the real story is more human. The real story is about a group of scientists who pushed the limits of human knowledge, who drilled deeper than anyone before or since, who saw things no human eye had ever seen, and who were abandoned when their country fell apart. The Kola Superdeep Borehole is not a gateway to hell. It is a gateway to our own past. A past of ambition, competition, and collapse. It is a reminder that empires rise, empires fall, and the holes they leave behind fill with rust, snow, and legend. What other secrets are hidden beneath our feet? What other holes have been drilled and sealed and forgotten? Subscribe to Echoes of the Lost. Turn on the notification bell. And do not forget to listen to what history left buried. This was the Kola Superdeep Borehole, the deepest hole on Earth and the deepest mystery.